past presidents of Flow members, and friends from the media. It is my privilege and honor to welcome the distinguished panel we have amongst us today, the stalwarts in the field of art. We will welcome them warmly. Just to update you, we are proud to announce that 50 members of Flow have returned yesterday from a very successful business delegation from Bhutan after meaningful meetings with the Prime Minister, Queen Mother, Ambassador, Bhutan Chambers of Commerce Industry, amongst others. Started today. Now coming back to today's session. Today's session will provide an insight in the process of collecting art and the role of private patronage in Indian contemporary art. It will also provide a first-hand perspective on the growing Indian art market and evolution of Indian art on the global stage. As avid art collector, Tarantino in one of his articles has stated, "The collector is an artist in his own way, by the way he puts things together. You can read a person's soul from their collection." Art collection, I would say, is an art in itself. It is the innate ability to separate out specific works of art from the millions of pieces already in existence and assemble them in a meaningful way. It is undeniable that India's contemporary art world has been growing from strength to strength and has gathering record crowds at global auctions. Valuations and volumes have soared to distinctive levels, which have forced major buyers to pay more attention to the Indian market. The panel will discuss how private collectors are taking art in India forward, changing public opinion about art, and making the transition from private collections to public spaces. Our panelists today are Kiran Nadar. She is a trustee of the Shiv Nadar Foundation and chairperson, Kiran Nadar Museum of Art. She is also an acclaimed international bridge player, a philanthropist and an avid art collector. She is a key driver behind demystifying art to the common man through the KNMA, a philanthropic initiative in art. She has been acknowledged as a hero of philanthropy by Forbes Asia magazine in 2010 for launching India's first philanthropic private museum. We welcome you at Flow. Hailing from the Gujral family, Feroze Gujral has had a long-standing relationship with the arts. A media personality and an entrepreneur in her own right, she founded the Gujral Foundation, which funds higher education in the arts, fashion, art, design, and architecture. She's also been a visiting professor at NIFT. Currently, she's the director of Outset India, a non-profit art foundation supporting new art in public spaces. We warmly welcome you, Feroze. A collector since age 15, Nitin Bhayana is one of India's most active collectors. He is the youngest individual to be appointed on the advisory board of the National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi. He has lectured extensively on the art market, infrastructure, and collecting at various institutions in India and abroad. We welcome you, sir. Gayatri Sinha is an art critic and curator based in New Delhi. She has lectured widely on Indian art and curated in India and abroad. As art critic, she has written a column for the Indian Express and the Hindu and has written monographs on the artists Krishan Khanna and Himmat Shah. She is the founder of Critical Collective, a forum of European and critical exchange. We welcome you, Gayatri ji, and look forward to your moderating the session. We hope that through this session, we can help educate our members and enhance their abilities to make informed decisions. Ritu Vadera, our governing body member, Director of Vadera Art Gallery. A warm thank you for coordinating the panel so beautifully and as always. Our hostess today is Priyanka Malhotra, Managing Trustee of Gujral Foundation, working in the sphere of health, dignity and happiness for underprivileged children and persons with disability. I would like to take this opportunity to thank her for hosting today's program entirely. Thank you. Just to update you, on the 22nd of September, we are having a finance workshop on access to finance with Exim Bank. It will be an interaction, and we've already emailed you the details of the same. Yeah. Thank you.
Gayatri Sinha to take over and moderate today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President, Madam Trustee. Thank you so much, Gujral for your intercession over these last few weeks and the possibility of creating this program. Thank you, ladies and friends at Flow. I found some old photographs of myself at Flow with Alhamdulillah when an Arpana for in 1994. It's about 20 years. It's a great pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me. I'm hugely proud to be a part of this August panel, to have Kiran Nadar, Nitin Bhayana and Feroze on the stage. And they've had, I think, we can only consider a very profound kind of influence on the way we see art, the way knowledge is constructed around art, and of course around how art circulates in India and abroad. It's interesting as it is perhaps as might have started as individuals, but they set up institutions and have had a dramatic influence. Now, anybody who's been following Indian art in the last 10 or 15 years would have noticed that it shot up. You know, the mercury shot up in the barometer, and then it seemed to hit turbulence and air pockets. And this would have certainly been the effect of the economic downturn, and there was a slowing or a kind of a stasis in the way art moved or was seen. But it's precisely at this time that individuals like Kiran Nadar, Feroze Gujral and Nitin Bhayana have been active, consistent, steady, and sort of pulled it up into creating institutions, into creating knowledge around India, into insisting on its global presence. And I think that's deeply inspirational. I'm also very inspired to be able to share this room with so many women entrepreneurs. You know, when we study art history, the thing that always strikes you, and I think I want to share this with you today, is about the role of the woman as a promoter of art in Indian art history. It's a very significant space, it's a slightly underdone space. But if you just look back, even 100 years ago, if you look at, say, something like the city of Bhopal, we understand that Bhopal was ruled for over 100 years by the Begums of Bhopal. They were the great art patrons. They were the ones that created the mosques, the sarais, the masjids. And not just in India, they were patronizing and sending construction and craftsmanship and artisanship as far away as Saudi Arabia. Push it a little further back and look at Mughal time. Perhaps not the great Lal Killa or the great Purana Killa, or perhaps the Agra fort. That required male patrimony, huge resources. But a cluster of jewel-like buildings across the Delhi, Agra, north of India were commissioned by women. Women were like Zinat Begum, the daughter of Feroze. They created these smaller, very beautiful monuments that still endure. Push it still further back to about the 10th century, and you come across Semyan Mahadevi. She's a great Tamil queen, one of the greatest cholas that ever lived. And she becomes a widow at a very young age, but already has the patronage of King Uttam Chola, her son, and embarks upon this fabulous temple building activity all across Tamil Nadu. Something like 60 temples are commissioned, bronzes, jewelries, lands. I mean, it was an efflorescence all flowing out of this one woman. So much so that you even have a town named after her called Semyan Mahadevi. Push it still further back and then you come to Kumara Devi, the Lichavi princess queen of Chandragupta Maurya, of Chandragupta, sorry, and she was the patron of Buddhist art at its peak. There was nobody who patronized Buddhist art with the same amount of intensity as Kumara Devi. So if you're looking at a span of about 2,000 years, women as patrons, women who are taking aesthetic decisions, women who are pushing religious value, if you like, but they're very powerful patrons. So that's something that we'd like to share and perhaps take forward in this discussion about what women can do as collectors, what women can do as patrons. I think in this discussion we keep a very broad notion of what patronage is, because that is what is represented by our panel. I'm going to then start with Kiran Nadar, who has already been introduced to you. She's familiar to many of us as this extremely vital representative of what it takes to make the wonderful transition from collector to museum promoter. To anybody who has visited her museum spaces, she runs 2 museums. They have very, very interesting modern and contemporary collections. And she did this at the age of 60, perhaps, when you first launched your museum. You were already a collector, late 50s. But I would like to put my question to her, and she's going to perhaps show us images, and we'll have a discussion. The format that we are going to follow today, also with Feroze and with Nitin Bhayana, is to have a sort of an easy panel format of conversation. This will carry on for an hour, and then we'll have 15 minutes of discussion with learning. I'd like to give it over to you now, Kiran. Would you like to start showing the images, and then we can take forward the discussion.
So the images are on loop. The images of my collection, part of the collection, are on a loop, which will keep running. So you get some kind of idea of the depth of the collection. So it has all kinds of things. It has watercolors, it has oils, it has early modern, and it will just give a small representation of the collection as it exists. So I'm going to start with defining my journey as first as a collector and then as an institution. I started my journey in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when we were building a home for ourselves. My collecting didn't start in the sense of building a collection. I didn't know what building a collection at that stage was. I was looking for art to put in my home, to beautify the home, and my knowledge of fine arts and art was very, very limited. I had no formal training. I just wanted to adorn my home. I think we are all gatherers in a sense. All of us collect. Some people collect coins, some people collect books. I mean, there are different ways of collection. But for me, art became this passion where I started building a collection without realizing that I was building it. At first, but I never had this thing of wanting pretty pictures. Somehow that never met with what I was looking for. I was looking for strong, hard-hitting art, and one of the first works I bought was a Vishnu Buddha work called Runners. And it's very new. It's a very, very strong work. It shows about the fact of mortality of man. And it was a work that my husband was quite horrified that I was getting, because our daughter was just 9 years old at that time, 8 years old. And he said, how can we have a very nude, large canvas about 8 feet by 8 feet in the house? But I persevered and we managed to get that canvas. So that's how the collection started. But somewhere along the line it changed from collecting to institution building, and I decided that I was going to do it.
What was that moment? What was, because it's a huge step, apparently, when you started your private museum, there was a sense that perhaps this is going to take off, there are going to be many more. But you're quite solitary in a certain sense. You are now pretty much the name for the private museum in India, internationally as well as nationally. Many people haven't followed, so there are many wealthy collectors. What made you take that leap of faith into an institution?
It's difficult for me to define how this happened. Even to myself, sometimes I wonder how did I take this step. I think it was unknowingly. I didn't even realize quite what a difficult step it was going to be. I just felt that I had a collection. At that time, it wasn't complete by any stretch of imagination. It was in hindsight, it was a pretty small collection, but it was larger than what I could put on my walls. So I felt that what's the point of putting things into storage? I should expose it to people. I have been exposed to museums in New York, in America, where there are lots of private endeavors and people have put their art out into the public space. And I felt that somebody in India needed to take this step. I'm sorry I'm so lonely here because I felt lots of more people would follow me, but that hasn't happened, and I still hope that it does happen because we need private endeavor to enter the field of arts. It's not just possible to for the state to do everything. I think, and having collections which people can see exposes many more people to art, which they wouldn't get a chance to see if it was lying in our private homes, in our drawing rooms.
What percentage of your art is on view at any given moment, and how much of it is in storage? Because these are obviously the technical backroom areas of how you store, what is the humidity level, what is the air conditioning level, what is the kind of facilities that you require. It's quite daunting.
It is daunting. At any given time, a very small percentage of the art can be shown. We have upward of 1,500 works in the collection now, closer to 1,800. And at any given time, I would say not more than 300 works can be shown between the two museums. So that's a very small percentage. But we have the opportunity of curating shows, showing curated exhibitions, exposing people to various aspects of the collection. Not if one sees the show in Noida and the show in Saket, they're completely different. And sensibilities of the show are different.
Yeah, this is the thing that you managed to do. You managed to create two spaces with very self-contained identity in a certain sense, and that also points to the richness of the direction that Indian art is now taking. You can have modern and contemporary in one space and very cutting-edge experimenting in your Noida space. I would encourage you all to perhaps take the addresses of these spaces, visit them, because certainly in the winter new shows are launched and they are very gripping. You might want to go back again and again and enjoy them. Maybe I should at this point also bring in Feroze, who represents the cutting edge of the cutting edge, so to speak. And is running, I think in her introduction we need to understand that Feroze also runs two organizations simultaneously. One is that she's the director of Outside India, and the other is that she runs Gujral Foundation. Now these are organizations which have a philanthropic interest in art, and I just asked her to introduce this because for most Indians, philanthropy tends to mean temples and hospitals. Philanthropy in art is a fairly new concept. How would you introduce it? How would you describe it?
Thank you, Gayatri, and thank you everyone for having me today. The thing that I would look at is, I would like to just for a moment, since we're all businesswomen in this room, and businessmen, I can see little data. Alright, I hope I will someday, and Nitin. I think I'd like to just start with a quote from Rockefeller who said, he quoted at some point that this is the business of benevolence. And I think that for me is an important sort of mark and a thing that stuck with me for a very long time. To see what is it that we can do as business people and be benevolent about whatever we love. And I think Kiran has done one of those things. She's just made a great passion into a business, or perhaps an offering that allows all of us to look at it and see what business has done in philanthropy. for me, it's very simple. I was, for many years, doing many businesses, spent all my time and effort making money. The bottom line is the most important part of it. But growing up in a family of an artist who for very many years was actually poverty-stricken and sold his first painting perhaps in his early 40s, and that's late by any standard. And today we look at our lives in a hurry for everything. By the time we're 40, we're like, oh my God, we'll be dead. So this urgency of always sort of doing things for money, and I realized that all business is done for money, and all philanthropy is done for love. And that kind of made me think that why is it not that we use a great love and do philanthropic things and make them into sustainable things, maybe not businesses, but sustainable things. And I started sort of looking at people who were coming to our house, meeting my father-in-law, meeting my in-laws, and sometimes it was heartbreaking what they were looking for. You know, some tiny amount of funds to put up a painting or an exhibition or to send a son to study because he's got the scholarship, they don't have money to buy suitcases. I mean, we have letters which are just so beautiful. There are children asking for money to buy a suitcase because they believe in America you can't go all the way to hold on. And it's stuff like that that made us think, let's do something. And we started very small, many years ago as Gujral Foundation, very disorganized, but just with the idea that whenever anybody asks for something, we will actually help in whatever way possible. That over time I kind of narrowed it down to what we were interested in, because that also meant we could bring with it not just money, but we could bring advice, we could bring collaborations, we could bring introductions, and that worked. And slowly from doing things in fashion, where I was a part of that field for a while, my husband's an architect, so that field, the artist because of my father-in-law, and slowly we all started coming together. And more, I realized that the arts actually were the worst funded. And this primarily because in spite of being such a hugely rich culture, we have very little respect for what we truly have. And it's the way the outside looks in. Everybody looks at India and thinks they should come to India and find India, and it's an incredible space with great art, great museums, great architecture, all preserved, and we don't do any of that. So I think there came a point where we decided that we would spend a certain amount of money. It began with when I was getting married. I'm a Muslim, married Hindu, and I was very young, and Mohit asked me, you know, is there anything you want? And I said, yes, you have to give 10% of whatever you earn to charity, because that's what we grew up with very young. And he said yes. And the beginning was very sweet. He would literally give me 10%. Now I got a feeling that he's giving me the interest of the interest of the interest of the 10% that he hides somewhere. Because, but he said,